What does it feel like when your dreams go up in flames? Literally. I stood frozen, watching the edges of my college acceptance letter curl and blacken in my stepdad's calloused hands. The acrid smell of burning paper filling our cramped living room. At 17, I'd spent years clawing my way toward this moment, only for Carl to reduce it to ash with a flick of his lighter and a sneer. School isn't for trash like you. I'm Lily Carter. And that moment wasn't just about a piece of paper, it was the culmination of a war that had been brewing in our house since Carl married my mom 3 years ago. He came into our lives like a storm, all bluster and control, turning our quiet home into a battlefield. Mom, once vibrant and full of laughter, had dimmed under his shadow, her smiles replaced by nervous glances. I'd always been the problem child in his eyes, too mouthy, too ambitious, too unwilling to bow to his rules. But this was different. This was him trying to break me. The letter was from Stanford, my golden ticket out of this suffocating small town in Ohio. I'd worked nights at the diner, studied until my eyes burned, and poured every ounce of myself into that application. When it arrived, I hid it under my mattress, waiting for the perfect moment to tell Mom. But Carl found it first. He always had a knack for sniffing out anything that gave me hope. "Why'd you do it?" I whispered, my voice trembling as the last corner of the letter crumbled to dust. My fists clenched, nails digging into my palms. "What do you do when someone takes the one thing you fought for?" Carl's lips twisted into a smirk. "You think you're better than us. Gonna run off to some fancy school and leave your mom to clean up your mess." He leaned closer, his breath sour with cheap beer. "You're nothing, Lily. Nothing." Mom stood in the doorway, her hands twisting the hem of her apron. Her eyes darted between us, wide and glassy, but she said nothing. Why didn't she speak? Why didn't she stop him? The silence was worse than his words, a betrayal that cut deeper than the fire. I wanted to scream, to hit him, to demand why he hated me so much. But something in me snapped shut, like a door slamming in my mind. I turned and ran to my room, locking the door behind me. The weight of his words, "trash like you," echoed in my head. Was he right? Was I fooling myself, thinking I could escape? That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the faint smell of smoke still clinging to my clothes. The letter was gone, but the words on it were burned into my memory. "Congratulations, Lily Carter. You have been accepted." I wasn't nothing. I couldn't be. But how do you rebuild a dream when someone's torn it apart? How do you keep going when the people who should lift you up are the ones holding the matches? By morning, something shifted inside me. Anger replaced despair, sharp and focused. Carl thought he'd won, but he didn't know me. Not really. I'd spent years surviving his insults, his rules, his attempts to shrink me. This wasn't the end, it was the beginning. But what would it take to prove him wrong? And what would it cost? I crept downstairs before dawn, the house silent except for Carl's snores. In the kitchen, I found Mom's old laptop, hidden in a drawer where Carl couldn't sell it for beer money. My fingers hesitated over the keys. Stanford's admissions office, could they send another letter? Would they even believe me if I told them what happened? The risk felt enormous, but doing nothing felt worse. As I typed, a plan began to form, jagged and uncertain. This wasn't just about replacing a letter. It was about taking back my future, piece by piece. But where do you start when the people closest to you feel like enemies? And how do you fight for yourself when you're not even sure who's on your side? The laptop screen glowed in the pre-dawn darkness, each word I typed to Stanford's admissions office feeling like a rebellion. My email was short, professional, but my hands shook as I described what Carl had done. Would they think I was lying? Some desperate kid making excuses? I hit send and waited, heart pounding, wondering if hope could survive in a house that felt like a cage. By breakfast, Carl was already barking orders, oblivious to the defiance brewing inside me. "Get to the diner early, Lily," he grunted. not looking up from his coffee. You're pulling a double shift. I nodded, biting back the urge to tell him I'd already taken the first step to escape him. Mom avoided my eyes, stirring oatmeal with mechanical precision. What was she thinking? Did she even care that he'd burn my future? At the diner, the clatter of dishes and chatter of regulars drowned out my thoughts, but not my resolve. During my break, I checked my email on the diner's ancient computer. A response from Stanford. We're sorry to hear about your situation. Please provide your application ID, and we can issue a digital copy of your acceptance letter. Relief flooded me, but it was fleeting. A digital letter wouldn't solve everything. Carl would still try to stop me. What do you do when the enemy lives in your house? That night, I overheard Mom and Carl arguing in hushed tones. She's ungrateful, Carl hissed. Thinks she's too good for us. Mom's voice was softer, pleading. She's just a kid. Carl, let her have this. My heart ached. Mom was defending me. But why wouldn't she say it to my face? Why did she let him control everything? I started hiding my plans. At school, I confided in Ms. Harper, my English teacher, who'd always believed in me. Her eyes widened when I told her about the letter. Lily, you can't let him win, she said, her voice fierce. What do you need to make this happen? I didn't know yet, but her belief in me felt like a lifeline. Could I trust her to help? Or would involving others just make things worse? Days passed, and I walked a tightrope at home. Carl's temper grew shorter, as if he sensed I was slipping from his grip. He started checking my phone, demanding to know where I was every second. I lied smoothly, saying I was studying at the library when I was really meeting Ms. Harper to plan my next steps. We researched scholarships, housing, anything to get me to Stanford without Carl's interference. But each step forward felt like tempting fate. What if he found out? One evening, I came home to find my bedroom door ajar. My heart sank. Carl had been in there. My notebook, where I jotted down scholarship deadlines and Stanford's contact info, was missing. Panic clawed at me. Had he read it? Was he waiting to confront me? I searched frantically, but it was gone. Downstairs, Carl sat on the couch, a smug glint in his eye. Looking for something? He asked, holding up the notebook before tossing it into the fireplace. The flames devoured it, just like my letter. I wanted to scream, but I held it in. He thought he was breaking me again, but he was wrong. Each act of cruelty only made me stronger, more determined. But how do you fight someone who holds all the power? And what happens when the cost of fighting means risking everything: your home, your family, your safety? I lay awake that night, plotting. Ms. Harper had suggested contacting a local youth advocate, someone who could help if things at home got worse. It felt like betrayal to even consider it. Mom was still my mom, despite everything. But Carl wasn't family. He was a wall between me and my future. What would it take to tear that wall down? And could I do it without losing Mom in the process? The ashes of my notebook still haunted me, but I wasn't the same girl who'd watched her acceptance letter burn. Each loss fueled a fire in minute of anger, but of purpose. What do you do when someone tries to erase your dreams? You rebuild them, smarter and quieter, until they're too strong to destroy. Ms. Harper became my anchor. At school, we met in secret, using her office computer to recreate my plans. She helped me contact Stanford again, explaining the notebook incident without mentioning Carl by name. They responded quickly, sending a digital acceptance letter and connecting me with a financial aid officer. But money wasn't the only hurdle. Carl was. How do you plan an escape when your jailer watches your every move? I started keeping my secrets in the cloud, using a school email Carl couldn't access. Ms. Harper introduced me to Mrs. Delgado, a youth advocate who worked with teens in challenging home situations. Her warm eyes and calm voice made me want to trust her. But doubt gnawed at me. What if involving her made things worse? What if Carl turned his anger on Mom? At home, tension thickened like smoke. Carl's control titanette started locking the fridge, claiming I didn't earn food unless I worked extra shifts. Mom's silence grew heavier, her eyes hollow. One night, I caught her crying in the kitchen, clutching a photo of us from before Carl. "I'm trying. Lily," she whispered when she saw me. "I don't know how to fix this." For the first time, I saw her not as a traitor, but as a prisoner too. Could I save us both? Or was I fighting a losing battle? Mrs. Delgado suggested documenting Carl's behavior, every insult, every threat, every burned piece of my future. "Evidence matters," she said. "It gives you options." Options. The word felt foreign, powerful. I started recording his outbursts on my phone, hiding it in my pocket during his rants. Each clip felt like a weapon, but wielding it scared me. What would happen if I used it? Would it free me, or destroy what little family I had left? One afternoon, Carl caught me coming home late from a meeting with Mrs. Delgado. "Were you sneaking off to?" he demanded, blocking the doorway. His eyes narrowed, searching for weakness. I lied, saying I was at the library, but his smirk told me he didn't believe it. That night, he took my phone, claiming I'd lost privileges. Panic surged me. Recordings were on there. Had I backed them up? Could I get it back before he found them? I waited until he passed out on the couch, then crept to his side, heart hammering. The phone was in his pocket, but my hands shook too much to risk it. Instead, I used Mom's laptop to check my cloud storage. Thank God, the recordings were safe. But the close call shook me. How much longer could I keep this up? Every step toward freedom felt like walking a tightrope over a fire. Ms. Harper suggested applying for an emergency scholarship for students in unsafe homes. It could cover housing at Stanford, far from Carl's reach. The idea was intoxicating: freedom, safety, a future. But it meant leaving Mom behind. Could I do that? Could I abandon her to him, knowing what he was capable of? As I filled out the application, doubt and hope wrestled inside me. Carl's voice echoed in my head. "Trash like you." But I wasn't trash. I was Lily Carter, accepted to Stanford, survivor of a house that tried to break me. The question wasn't whether I could escape, it was how much I was willing to sacrifice to do it. What do you choose when your dreams and your family are on opposite sides of the fight? The scholarship application was my lifeline, but every word I typed felt like a betrayal of Mom. Could I leave her in this house with Carl, knowing his cruelty would turn on her next? The question gnawed at me, but I pushed it down, focusing on the future I could still grasp. Mrs. Delgado's advice to document everything changed the game. I kept my phone hidden at school now, recording Carl's rants through a cracked bedroom door. Each file uploaded to the cloud felt like stacking bricks for a wall between me and him. But what happens when you build a wall to protect yourself? Does it shut out everyone else, too? One night, Carl's temper exploded over a spilled glass of water. "You clumsy idiot," he roared, slamming his fist on the table. Mom flinched, and I hit record, my heart racing. His words were venomous, calling me worthless, a burden. When he stormed out, I checked the recording clear. Damning. Mrs. Delgado was right. Evidence gave me power. But how do you use power without hurting the ones you love? Mom caught me uploading the file later, her face pale. "Lily, what are you doing?" she whispered. I froze, unsure how much to tell her. Should I trust her with the truth? Or was she too broken to help? "I'm protecting myself," I said finally, my voice steady. Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "Be careful," she said, and for the first time, I felt her on my side, even if she couldn't say it out loud. At school, Ms. Harper helped me polish the scholarship essay, pouring my story into words that didn't sound like a victim's plea but a survivor's claim. "You're not just fighting for you," she said. "You're showing others they can fight, too." Her words lit something in me, a purpose bigger than my own escape. Could my story matter to someone else? Could it change anything beyond these walls? The scholarship committee responded faster than I expected, requesting an interview. Elation mixed with dread. Carl was watching me closer than ever. He'd started searching my room daily, tossing clothes and books like a hunter sniffing out prey. I hid my laptop at Ms. Harper's house, but the fear of discovery was constant. What if he found out about the scholarship? What would he burn next? One evening, I overheard Mom and Carl again, their voices low but sharp. "She's up to something," Carl growled. "I can feel it." Mom's response was barely audible. "Let her go, Carl. She's not yours to keep." My breath caught. Mom was fighting for me, in her quiet, broken way. But was it enough? Could she stand up to him when it mattered most? The interview was scheduled for a Friday, over Zoom at Ms. Harper's house. I lied to Carl, saying I had a group project, but his eyes followed me out the door, cold and suspicious. At Ms. Harper's, I poured my heart into the call, explaining my grades, my dreams, and carefully me, challenging home environment. The interviewer's kind eyes gave me hope. But when I got home, Carl was waiting. "Where were you really?" he demanded, holding my backpack, which he'd rifled through. My heart stopped. Had he found anything? I mumbled about the library, but his grip tightened on my arm. "Lie to me again, and you'll regret it," he hissed. Fear spiked, but so did my resolve. I wasn't the girl he'd burned out anymore. I was someone with a plan, a future, a fight. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't wait for the scholarship or Stanford's safety net. I needed to act now, before Carl's suspicions turned into something worse. But what do you do when every choice feels like a risk? And how do you protect the ones you love when the battle is just beginning? Carl's grip on my arm left a bruise, but it was the look in his eyes, cold, calculating, that scared me most. He knew I was slipping away, and a cornered animal is dangerous. What do you do when the person who wants to break you lives under the same roof? I confided in Mrs. Delgado the next day, showing her the recordings and the bruise. Her face hardened. "Lily, this is abuse," she said. "You have options, legal ones." The word legal felt like a bomb. Could I take Carl to court? Would it free me, or trap Mom in his wrath? I wasn't ready to decide, but I asked her to hold the evidence, just in case. At home, I walked on eggshells. Carl's searches grew bolder. Checked my school bag, my pockets, even the trash. I stopped bringing anything incriminating home, relying on Ms. Harper's house as my safe haven. The scholarship interview had gone well, and a week later, an email arrived. I'd been awarded full funding, including housing. Stanford was real now, not just a dream. But how do you step into a new life when the old one is still choking you? Mom noticed the change in me, the quiet determination. One night, she slipped into my room, closing the door softly. "Lily, I found something," she whispered, holding a crumpled paper original scholarship application, hidden in her closet. "I'm so proud of you," she said, tears spilling. "But Carl, he'll never let you go." Her words were a confession, an apology. Did she want to help me escape? Or was she warning me to stop? I took a risk. "Mom, I'm leaving for Stanford. Soon. Will you come with me?" Her face crumpled, torn between love and fear. "I can't," she said finally. He'd find me. My heart broke, but I understood. She was trapped, just like I'd been. But unlike her, I had a way out. Could I leave her behind, knowing what Carl might do? Mrs. Delgado suggested a restraining order, but I hesitated. It would protect me. But what about Mom? Instead, I focused on the practical, packing a small bag, hiding it at Ms. Harper's, and memorizing Stanford's move-in date. Each step felt like defiance, but also like betrayal. Was I abandoning Mom, or saving myself? One evening, Carl's rage peaked. He'd found an email printout I'd carelessly left in my Jaquita confirmation from Stanford about orientation. You think you're smarter than me, he roared, tearing it to shreds. Mom tried to intervene, but he shoved her against the wall. That was a line he'd never crossed before. I grabbed my phone, hit record, and called 911, my voice shaking but clear. The police arrived, their lights flashing through our windows. Carl's face paled as they questioned him, Mom sobbing in the background. I handed over my phone. The recordings. Everything. They took him away in handcuffs, citing domestic disturbance. Mom clung to me, whispering, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But was it enough? Had I saved us? Or broken us apart? As the police car pulled away, I felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. Carl was gone for now, but the house felt emptier, not freer. Mom's eyes were haunted, and I wondered if she'd ever forgive me. What do you do when saving yourself means hurting the ones you love? And how do you move forward when the past still burns? The police lights faded, but the silence in our house was deafening. Mom sat on the couch, staring at the floor, her hands trembling. I'd crossed a line calling the police, exposing Carl's cruelty, but had I saved us? Or shattered what was left of our family? What do you do when the right choice feels so wrong? Carl was released the next day, pending a hearing. He didn't come home, Mrs. Delgado had helped me file for a temporary restraining order, backed by my recordings. But his absence didn't feel like victory. Mom barely spoke, her eyes distant. You did what you had to, she said once, but her voice was hollow. Was she proud of me? Or resentful? I couldn't tell. Ms. Harper and Mrs. Delgado became my lifelines. They arranged for me to stay at a youth shelter until Stanford's move in, just to be safe. Packing my bag felt surreal. Clothes, a toothbrush, and a USB drive with my evidence. All that tethered me to this life. I hugged Mom before I left, her arms frail around me. Come back to me, she whispered. Could I promise that? Could I ever come back to a place that had tried to destroy me? At the shelter, I met other kids with stories like my parents who hurt, homes that weren't safe. Their resilience gave me strength, but also perspective. My fight wasn't just about me anymore. What if I could use my story to help others? Ms. Harper suggested I write about it, maybe for a blog or a scholarship essay. The idea scared me, exposing my pain to the world, but it also felt right. Stanford's orientation was a month away, and I threw myself into preparation. Mrs. Delgado connected me with a counselor to process what had happened. Talking about Carl. Mom. The fire, it was like lancing a wound. Painful, but necessary. The counselor asked, what do you want your future to look like? Lily. For the first time, I saw it clearly, not just Stanford, but a life where I wasn't defined by Carl's words. But how do you build that life when the past still lingers? Mom called sometimes, her voice strained. Carl was staying with a friend, she said, but he was angry, unpredictable. She was trying to leave him, but fear held her back. I wanted to shake her, to beg her to come with me, but I knew it wasn't that simple. Could I help her find her own strength? Or was it her battle to fight? One day, I got a call from Mrs. Delgado. Carl had violated the restraining order, showing up at the house. Mom had called the police, and he was back in custody. My heart raced, relief for Mom's safety, fear for what came next. She's asking for you, Mrs. Delgado said. I went to the house, finding Mom packing a bag of her own. I'm done, she said, her voice shaking but firm. I want to be better for you. We cried together, holding each other like we hadn't in years. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. Carl's hearing loomed, and Mom's road to freedom would be long. But for the first time, I saw hope in her eyes. Had I given her that? By fighting for myself? Or had she found it on her own? As I prepared to leave for Stanford, I realized this wasn't just about escaping Carl. It was about choosing who I wanted to be, a survivor, not a victim. But what does survival mean when it's built on the ashes of your past? And how do you carry the people you love into a future they might not be ready for? Stanford's campus stretched before me, a world of red-tiled roofs and possibility. But I carried the weight of home in every step. Mom was staying with a friend now, attending counseling, rebuilding her life without Carl. His hearing had ended with a year in jail. Me recordings sealed his fate. But victory felt bittersweet. What do you do when winning your freedom means leaving pieces of your heart behind? My first weeks at Stanford were a whirlwind. Classes challenged me. Classmates inspired me. But Carl's voice, trash like you, still echoed in quiet moments. I joined a support group for first-generation students, sharing my story in halting words. Their nods, their own tales of struggle, made me feel seen. Could I redefine myself here, away from the ashes of my past? I wrote to Mom weekly, long emails about lectures, dorm life, and the California sun. She wrote back, her words tentative but growing stronger. She'd enrolled in community college, a small step toward her own dreams. You showed me I could start over, she wrote. My heart swelled. Had my fight given her courage? Or had she always had it, buried under years of fear? MS. Harper sent me a package one day, a new notebook, its pages blank and waiting. Write your story, Lily. Her note read, the world needs it. I started writing, not just for me, but for kids like me, trapped in homes that hurt. My blog, From Ashes to Dreams, gained traction, shared by shelters and schools. Each comment from a reader felt like a spark, lighting up the dark. Was this my purposito turned pain into hope? Carl's shadow lingered, though. A letter from him arrived, smuggled through a friend. You'll always be nothing, he wrote. I stared at the words, then burned the letter myself, watching it curl into ash. It wasn't revenge, it was release. His words had no power anymore. But how do you let go of the past completely when it shaped who you are? One evening, Mom called, her voice bright. She'd gotten a job at a bookstore, her first step toward independence. I'm coming to visit, she said. When she arrived, we walked Stanford's paths together, her eyes wide with pride. You did this, Lily, she said, hugging me. You saved us both. I cried, not from pain, but from the weight of her words. Had I saved her? Or had we saved each other? As I stood on the quad, Mom by my side, I realized survival wasn't just about escaping. It was about building something new: relationships, dreams, a legacy. Carl had tried to burn my future, but I'd risen from those ashes, stronger than he could ever imagine. My story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Looking back, I saw the girl who'd watched her acceptance letter burn, the one who thought she was trash. She was still part of me, but so was the woman who'd fought, planned, and won. What do you do when you've claimed your future? You keep fighting, not just for yourself, but for everyone still trapped in the flames. And as I walked toward my next class, notebook in hand, I knew I'd never stop.